you for inviting me to your August Congress, 25th year. Let's hope we don't have to wait another 25 years to get independence. And if we can help you do that, we'd be delighted. My speech originally was going to be, why are there so many nations without states? Still today, after many, many years, after decolonisation, you didn't think that everybody would have their own state, should they wish. But clearly we don't. There are many, many peoples around the world that are still stateless. The Sindh being one of them, the Baloch being another, the Tamils, the Sikhs, the Hill tribes, Kashmir, West Papua, Sabah Sarawak, Catalonia, the Kurds. It goes on and on and on. But they're all invisible voices, because beyond the people that are here today, very few people will be aware of the Sindh in the world. Very few people will be aware that the Sindh are a nation beyond this meeting. And one of the things that we are endeavouring to change is to ensure that your cause goes on the map of the world, and that your cause will eventually get recognition, and God willing, your cause will eventually come true, and you will get your independence. But we talk about self-determination. We talk about your right for independence, or autonomy, or even integration within Pakistan, God forbid. You decide. I won't be there to decide whether Sindh should have independence. You decide if you want independence. You decide if you want autonomy. It's your choice. The problem is that most of these governments around the world don't give you that choice. Now, next year, Scotland, as part of the United Kingdom, will have a referendum on independence. I'm not Scottish, I won't be allowed to vote, and that is correct. They will decide if they want independence. What other countries around the world have been allowed this right of referendum to decide their future? Only a handful. South Sudan, Kosovo, East Timor. There's very few people have been allowed that referendum. But we're supposed to live in a democracy, or we're not. We're talking about we want a democracy around the world. It's the 21st century. Let's move with the times. The reality is that most of the world is not moving with the times, and they're not going to allow any form of democracy if it allows people to do something different to what the governments want. Now, I'm not going to spend a long time going through the speech talking about all the treaties that exist about self-determination, because we haven't got the time. But most people say to me, don't the United Nations support self-determination? And of course it's true. If you go through many, many of their clauses, the Article 1 says there should be, in Article 2, there should be self-determination of people. The Declaration of Principles of International Law talks about self-determination of peoples. The International Covenant of Human Rights talks about self-determination. The Declaration of Granting Independence to Colonial Peoples talks about self-determination. But of course, in the reality, whilst we have those declarations, it's not happening. And the reason it's not happening is the United Nations is a misnomer. It should be called the United States, because it's a club of states. And most of those states are oppressing peoples within their own countries. So they're not going to support independence for the Sindh in Pakistan, because that would mean we should support Tamil independence in Sri Lanka. We should support West Papuan independence from Indonesia, and so on and so on. So this club of states is there to preserve their borders and stop other peoples getting self-determination. And the main reason that is because also in the United Nations, they also talk about something called territorial integrity. And in the same declaration, I think it was on Declaration of International Law, they talk about you should not dismember or impair, totally or in part, the territorial integrity or the political unity of independent states. So of course that's going to be a problem, isn't it? If you're going to have independent Sindh, that means Pakistan must be broken down. And that will be the same for everywhere. Of course, the United Kingdom, we're saying if the Scots want independence, we'll allow it. And that is the correct democratic human right But sadly, most peoples around the world don't have that. So don't look to the United Nations to be the panacea to your problems, because it won't be, and it never will be. And it won't be with the European Union, it won't be with the Commonwealth, and any other organisation of that ilk, because they're all composed of states. And those states have an interest in not allowing you that freedom. So very briefly, because of that problem, we formed a group called Nations Without States. It was formed initially with a Tamil MP, with myself, an Englishman, and a Sikh, all activists, all important in their own community. And our aim is to get all the various diasporas around in the UK initially working together. I want Sindh working together with Baloch, with Tamil, with Sikhs, with West Papuans, with Catalonians, with all those peoples should be working together. If you work together, you'll be massively strong. So whilst you're only speaking to your own people here today, I want you to be speaking to all the peoples of the world, in particular the United Kingdom, where most people are living here. You need to be lobbying people like me, people who look like me anyway, because we're the majority, so therefore you need to convert me, not your own people. Your own people already know the problem. We've heard about educational problems, we've heard about human rights problems, disappearances, but nobody knows about that in the world. The states know, the United States know, the United Kingdom government knows, but they don't care. So you've got to go beyond those governments and talk to the peoples to get there. We need an Arab Spring, if you like, of peoples for self-determination, as once happened after the First World War, where self-determination was the principle of international relations. It is no longer, but we will change that. How are we going to do that? Well, we need everybody working together. We need conferences like this, but with people from other communities addressing you. And you need to do the same. And we need to be very active in lobbying and in demonstration. Much more than just having conferences, because we're only speaking to ourselves here. So most of our work needs to be speaking to other people who are not yet converted. That's absolutely vital. And we've got many plans for the future. We have a Parliamentary House of Lords meeting next week to do with the Commonwealth, which you're part of, talking about how the Commonwealth has a charter, which talks about human rights, talks about democracy, talks about freedom of expression, all the things that your people don't have in Pakistan, or in Zimbabwe, or in Sri Lanka, and in other countries around the Commonwealth. So we want to expose the Commonwealth to be the hypocritical organisation that it is. It does not allow you free speech and freedom and democracy, and we need to expose the hypocrisy of our governments who pretend that it does. And finally, just to give you a glimpse of our ambitions, and we're very ambitious. We've been invited to many conferences around the world, which we are going to over the next few months. And we're going to be rallying all these people around the world, as well as the UK, to work together. Two things I'll leave you on. Firstly, I believe that this cause of self-determination in many cases has passed from your homeland to the diasporas. Because in your homeland, if you speak out, you are killed, you are imprisoned, you are disappeared, you are suppressed. Fortunately, in the West, generally, you are free. This meeting wouldn't be allowed to go ahead in Karachi. It wouldn't be allowed to go to Colombo, Sri Lanka. It wouldn't be allowed to go ahead in Harare, in Zimbabwe. But it is allowed to go ahead here. So it's very important that we mobilise the diasporas in the UK, in Canada, in Holland, in France, everywhere. And we're going to do that. We're going to mobilise all the diasporas working together. One little ambitious tactic we can use. Next year you have European elections. We have a plan, if we can raise money, to have a list of all the self-determinist peoples in the UK, in London, because that's where most diasporas reside. And we're going to have 8 MEP candidates from those communities. A Tamil, a Sikh, a Baloch, a Sindh, a Sikh. All those people will be represented. And all the flags of self-determinists around in that leaflet. If we can do that, given the fact there are 750,000 plus national diasporas in London, the people like you who want self-determination freedom, we could actually get MEPs elected. It wouldn't be difficult. And if we do that, those people go to Brussels, talk for your cause, for the Sindh, for West Papuan, for the Kurds, for everybody. And that will give us a massive uplift. So you won't just be talking to people in this group, you'll be talking to millions and millions of European peoples about your cause. So, my final point is, watch this space. We're going to go far. We want you with us, because we want freedom and independence for the Sindh people and all peoples. Thank you.